Welcome back to the Barrel Talk Podcast. We are back with another episode. In this episode, something a little bit different. Starting episode 1 of a new series called Inside the Barrel, where we take 4 or 5 of the best trending topics in the NBA and the NFL and just kind of take a deep dive, talk more about those certain situations. I got about 4 topics here for us today to talk about going into the NFL season. Both seasons will be rapid fire once both get going on, and things are going to be happening quick. This is kind of a weekly episode that will either drop, I think, Monday or Tuesday, depending on where I want to kind of start really going down the path of when to schedule them, because I want to get the complete weeks of NFL done as well, week by week, and also when the NBA is going on, what are the best days in the NBA season to upload. So it might be a more of like a Tuesday, Wednesday kind of thing. You guys are going to be seeing this Wednesday morning. It's going to be happening and dropping around 10, 11 o'clock in the morning Central Time. So looking at this, I have a couple topics here today from the NBA and NFL. Starting out this with Kyler Murray being the starting quarterback in Minnesota now. That got announced today. It was pretty much the consensus thing everybody knew was going to happen going into this offseason ever since they brought in Kyler Murray. It just didn't make a whole lot of sense for them to bring him in and not start him. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're looking at the quarterback room last year in Minnesota, they still won 9 games. But they didn't make it a competition. And there was no world where I thought J.J. McCarthy was going to be the starting quarterback week 1. Just because it doesn't seem like they have the confidence in him. And now with the complete front office changing this offseason to where Kwesi's out there, they don't really have a ton of attachment to J.J. McCarthy. And bringing in Kyler Murray on the deal they did, I think Kyler Murray at this point in his career gives the Minnesota Vikings the best chance to win games going into next season in a division where I think it's a little bit more wide open than people are saying. Very competitive division, but I could see a world where any of these teams win the division as well. So I'm looking at Kyler Murray giving them the best chance to win right away. And he's just been around the block a couple times. I'm interested to see his play style and KOC's play calling. Just kind of see how that plays out. But week 1, Kyler Murray is going to be the starting quarterback. I think that is the right move. Now, the speculation is, does J.J. McCarthy get traded? I think there is a possibility. I would say about a 20-30% chance at this point in time. I don't think they're really willing to trade him right now. But there are some teams I can see be interested in somebody like J.J. McCarthy taking a flyer on someone like him, like at the Colts. Just because you have Daniel Jones coming off the Achilles thing, maybe you have a little bit more faith in JJ compared to Riley Leonard. Long term, I think that could be an option for them as well. The Dolphins, I know they brought in Malik Willis, signed him to a long-term deal. They're probably going to be trying to draft a quarterback next offseason during the draft process. But there is a world where I think they could also take a flyer on J.J. McCarthy, depending on how their season does turn out. Now going into another team, I think the Cardinals are an interesting team because the Cardinals, yes, we just saw Carson Beck have a really good performance in the Hall of Fame game. But Jacoby Brissett, with the contract stuff we saw, he's also not their long-term option at quarterback and solutions, where I'm like, JJ might be worth a flyer. You probably have a little bit more faith in JJ McCarthy going long-term than Carson Beck. And then somebody like the Steelers. The Steelers could be interesting because obviously Aaron Rodgers is possibly going to be his final year of his career, to where it's like, why not take a flyer on someone like him going long-term? Because realistically, you're probably not going to be in the realm to draft one of the top-end quarterbacks next season, because I think the Steelers are still going to be hovering around 500, maybe a little bit better than that. But they're just never in a position to be bad enough to like be in that spot to draft a quarterback, to where I'm like, okay, maybe they take a flyer on J.J. McCarthy. Another thing that I wanted to note and talk about and wrap this in is there are reports that Anthony Richardson could possibly be cut or released going into the season. And I think there's a ton of teams that would take a flyer on just such an athletic guy at the quarterback position. I think the Vikings would be interested. Vikings have always liked Anthony Richardson. I think the Steelers would be interested. Like all the teams I just named, outside of the Colts, of course, would be interested in possibly getting somebody like Anthony Richardson. I do think it would benefit him from going to a strong, just organization when it comes to developing quarterbacks. That's why I think Minnesota could be an interesting one for him. Maybe getting him somewhere like LA, like the Rams or something like that. I feel like that's always been like a crazy dream scenario for somebody like Anthony Richardson, pairing him up with McVay. But he needs to go somewhere that's going to really trust and be a strong organization. I'm not saying the Colts aren't a good one, because they are a good organization. It just didn't seem to be a good pairing there. Obviously, he was a raw athletic prospect coming in right away. I just think he went to the wrong situation. And for the Colts that kind of are in this weird, like, we want to win games, but like, we're fine if we don't win games. Like it's a weird vibe over there for the Colts, to where I'm looking at this team and Anthony Richardson could be also getting cut, talking about 2 young quarterbacks in their next stop and next situations. But I think there's a world where J.J. McCarthy is still on this Vikings team. Injuries do happen, and he can step in for Kyler Murray, and they still have Wentz on the roster as well in that depth room, in that quarterback room, to where yeah, they could probably still keep JJ McCarthy and be fine, but there is a world where he could get traded. Teams could be calling. And for them, you kind of always have to keep your line open. Now getting into the Golden State Warriors, pivoting over to the NBA, reports are saying that they're looking at this year as a gap year, right? Everybody says and hears that, and it's instantly like terrible, terrible, terrible thing. Okay, so I went and kind of like just took like me being a fan of Steph Curry out of it and was like, okay, let me look at the financials. Let me look at what they're talking about in terms of a gap year, right? So they're talking about in terms of a gap year of Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green being off the books going into next offseason, right? Steph Curry can sign an extension at the end of August. So, and all reports are saying that both sides are open to making that happen. I feel like he's going to still finish his career in Golden State. I don't think he's ever leaving Golden State. So looking at that, going into an offseason now, does Steph Curry take a pay cut? He could. With Draymond Green and Jimmy Butler off the books, they can go big fish hunting next offseason. I know it's a very big time what if for the Warriors, because it seems like they are in the conversations like the Miami Heat were for years until they landed Giannis Antetokounmpo talking about the Miami Heat. But when I'm looking at the Golden State Warriors, going into next offseason, Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green off the books could sign them for more team-friendly deals to open up cap space to really improve the roster. Steph Curry, about to sign his extension, could take a pay cut of some sort to open up even more money to really improve the roster and have one really good go all-in kind of season after next offseason. I know this is an older roster, but I think that would also put them in a great position to add the talent necessary. But I also think this roster, it's kind of the laughing side because it seems like Golden State strikes out on everybody, but I do like their moves, like Yaxel Lendenborg's fit on this team, especially when you have Jimmy Butler coming back. I think that's the main thing that the Warriors have lacked is just bigger wings. And Yaxel being able to be super versatile, be able to play the 2, 3, or the 4 comfortably, in my opinion, right away at the NBA level is something that's going to be very, very big time for this Warriors team. Having Guy Santos on this team as well, they actually have good wing depth for once, and I feel like that's something they've been lacking. They've always been super heavy on having a ton of guards, and they were a little bit smaller, but having Yaxel, having Guy Santos, you're going to have Jimmy Butler back at some point throughout the first couple months of the season, having Draymond Green still, and then you bring back Kristaps Porzingis, who, yes, he does have his injury concerns, but I'm interested to see a lineup of Curry, Pods, or you could even go Curry, Yaxel, Jimmy, Draymond, Kristaps if you want to put out a lineup with size, versatility, shooting, spacing with Kristaps and Curry, and you have 3 versatile wings in between them. I'm really in on that kind of lineup. It just has to stay healthy, and I think they're going to be still flirting around the 6 to 10 seed in a loaded Western Conference. But if Steph Curry stays healthy, this team is still going to be really, really fun to watch. Do they have a title ceiling? Absolutely not. I don't think it's like that. But I think they can still definitely be in the mix if everybody stays healthy on their team, especially like guys like Yaxel Lendenborg, Brandon Podziemski, guys that I think are going to be very high usage guys right away starting the season. And it depends on what time they get Jimmy Butler back, because they're a team that can still go onto the free agency market right now, added DeMar DeRozan, somebody that can just be a shot creator for them, maybe not the best fit in the world. But they also, I feel like, are in a world where he would be useful because you don't have Jimmy Butler to start the year. I know DeMar DeRozan isn't the sexiest name in the world and is another older player, but I feel like his shot creation could open up some avenues for the Warriors that I feel like they desperately need at this point because Jimmy Butler is hurt last year. And I think the Jimmy Butler injury kind of just put a sour taste in everybody's mouth because you already had Curry dealing with his stuff last year with the knee. But you got to think this is a team that could have been a Steph Curry hamstring pull away from going to the conference finals not too long ago. So, like, this team, yes, it's older. Yes, they're kind of the laughingstock of the league right now. But looking at it from the big picture perspective and what they have on their roster going into the year, I have trust in Steph Curry to still be a top 10 player in the sport when healthy. So I think Golden State, yes, this is a gap year, but I think people are not giving them the credit they deserve. And I think they're kind of not giving this roster enough grace, right? For a team that's won multiple championships, I know they've swift on some draft picks and everything else in the Kuminga situation, the Wiseman situation, but I think right now, the gap year approach, I do understand what they're saying going into next offseason, having an open cap sheet, being able to really sign a couple big-time free agents next offseason, depending on what Steph Curry's contract looks like after the extension, which I think he's going to sign, what you do with Jimmy Butler in a contract year, what you do with Draymond Green. I think this core would be fine taking a pay cut to go in one more all-in year because the injury to Steph Curry kind of derailed that run that they were on 2 years ago when they lost to the Minnesota Timberwolves and Steph Curry pulled his hamstring. But for the Warriors, I think they're still in a fine position. Not going to be a title contender or anything else like that, but they're still going to be in the mix in the Western Conference, anywhere between like a 5 to 10 seed, in my opinion. But their main thing is if Curry and Kristaps stay healthy, those are kind of the two. Obviously, Steph Curry is the biggest factor on this team. But if you can get Kristaps to play at least 50 to 60 games, I think this team has the spacing, the veteran mindset, the coaching to really still be a threat out west in terms of just competing for a playoff spot. But I do understand what the Warriors front office and management are saying about a gap year. Getting into kind of still NBA talk, a lot of NBA news kind of dropping over the past couple of days. Best available free agents. I know we're in August. The NFL season is about to start up in under a month now. But we still have the NBA, some NBA free agents. I got 6 guys right here, 3 restricted, 3 unrestricted. Peyton Watson, I do think he's still going to end up in Denver. I think it just makes the most sense for them to kind of get a deal done there. The only other team I could see taking a swing on him right now is maybe Cleveland, but it seems like Cleveland would have to make another opposite move. And trading somebody like Jared Allen to make something like that happen. I don't know if they want to go down that route, but I would love Peyton Watson's fit on that team. It makes me question, like, the Cavs are still cooking something. I'll get to that when we get to the unrestricted free agents as well. I'll wrap around back to that thought. But Jalen Duren, Pistons, I think it's going to happen. He could play on the qualifying offer, which is going to be very interesting, very intriguing. But for this Pistons offseason, for me to not be a fan of, even if it was some sort of sign and trade, which it seems like it's trending not to be in that direction, they've had too bad of an offseason to also lose Jalen Duren. They would be losing way too many pieces that help build that culture over there. And Duren, Stewart, Tobias Harris, like they've lost already a lot this offseason. I haven't loved it. To where I think they're going to find a way to bring back Jalen Duren. Either he's going to play on the qualifying or they're going to find some contract situation later down the line this offseason. Next one, Benedict Mathurin. Another interesting one because he's somebody that I think is a no-brainer bring back for the Clippers. A young, explosive scorer that has a ton of potential in this league. But you also have the Kawhi Leonard stuff looming on, so they're probably not even thinking about Benedict Mathurin bringing him back until they have this Kawhi Leonard situation fully resolved and seeing the repercussions of that. But I do think Benedict Mathurin finds his way back to the Clippers. It doesn't seem like he's going to end up leaving and going anywhere else. Unrestricted guys, Jonathan Kuminga. Man, it sucks because I think Jonathan Kuminga really does have all the talent in the world. From an athletic standpoint, he's still young, like still has room to grow. I think he finds his way to Minnesota. I think Minnesota could really use a wing that can get downhill, score, cut without the basketball, be able to play up and down with LaMelo Ball pushing the pace as a point guard now. And they're kind of lacking at that 3-4 spot. I think they could use another athletic guy that could play the 3, play the 4. And I think Jonathan Kuminga could be the perfect guy for this Timberwolves team that I feel like that's their one hole. I kind of like a lineup of LaMelo, Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels. Man, it would be my ideal lineup for them if they bring in Jonathan Kuminga would be LaMelo, Anthony Edwards, McDaniels, and Kuminga and Rudy Gobert. I like that lineup better than a lineup of LaMelo and Ayo, McDaniels, and Rudy Gobert. I just think having another bigger wing out there could really help them out a little bit defensively, and Kuminga can play above the rim. Kuminga is somebody that has all-world athleticism. I think him running in transition with LaMelo Ball can kind of give you a world of like what LaMelo Ball and Miles Bridges were over there doing in Charlotte. You know what I mean? Giving him a pairing, somebody a forward that can play above the rim, get downhill. I really like his fit over there. Another team could be Cleveland. That's where we're going to pivot to next with James Harden and the Cavs. I feel like they do have something in the works, and we could see some sort of late season trade. How we saw the Wolves and the Knicks make that trade with Cat, Randall. I think we could be seeing something like that with the Cleveland Cavaliers because they haven't brought back James Harden back. I feel like he's willing to take any sort of pay cut to make things work and to make them a top-tier contender that can get to the finals out east. But I feel like they have something in the works because they're still tied to somebody like Peyton Watson, Jonathan Kuminga. I feel like they desperately need somebody on the wing with some size and versatility. But it seems like everything that I'm seeing is they have to trade Jared Allen to make that happen. And I'm all for that because I'm ready to see Evan Mobley at the full-time 5. I think he's ready at this point in his career to be the all-time 5. And then you can kind of switch some things around and bring in another backup depending on who you trade Jared Allen to. But I think that this team has reached its ceiling with Mobley and Allen on the court together at that 4-5 combination. And if the route is getting Peyton Watson or Jonathan Kuminga and doing a trade for Jared Allen and bringing in something with some more depth in that trade, I think that it gives the Cavs a higher ceiling because I like Mobley more at the 5, and I like a lineup of James Harden, Donovan Mitchell, either Peyton Watson, Jonathan Kuminga. You possibly get a 4-man in the trade with Jared Allen, and you have Evan Mobley at the 5. I think that team has a higher ceiling competing out east than the Jared Allen, Evan Mobley thing, which we kind of have seen run its course. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see some sort of late season trade for the Cavs because they haven't brought back James Harden just yet. And I think they're kind of keeping their options open to kind of making a bigger move at the end in this late period in the offseason. Last name up is DeMar DeRozan. DeMar DeRozan is somebody to me that I link to the Warriors and just what we were talking about the Warriors. Another team is the Miami Heat. I think they could also use just another shot creator. I feel like he'd be fine coming off the bench over there in Miami, trying to compete for a title coming out of the Eastern Conference. And I feel like they could just use a little bit more shot creation on the perimeter. They don't have a ton of it right now. Yes, you have Giannis, Bam, Wiggins, Davion Mitchell. Love those four in the starting lineup. Depending on who you want to put at the two guard is up to them. But I think DeMar DeRozan could be a fine spot there. I know the spacing would be a little bit wonky, a little bit weird, but they can kind of use another shot creator throughout that roster. I think their starting lineup is going to be probably Davion, Tim Hardaway, Andrew Wiggins, Giannis, and Bam, which is a really good, strong lineup out east. And if you have some scoring with DeMar DeRozan coming off the bench, I don't hate it at all. Whether you wanted to go the DeMar DeRozan, Bradley Beal, Russell Westbrook route, Bradley Beal probably fits it the best because he's the best shooter out of the three and can kind of play better off the ball than the other two. But I think the Miami Heat are going to grab either DeMar DeRozan, Bradley Beal, or Westbrook to end this offseason. But getting into our last topic for this episode, the NBA dropped the schedule. Opening night and kind of just the opening week slate, and then they did Christmas Day as well. So we can get into what we have here for NBA opening night. Opening night will be Sixers at Knicks. Obviously, ring night for the New York Knicks, and then OKC at San Antonio. I mean, I couldn't even draw up a better, more marketable opening night for the NBA. And then we can kind of talk about their Christmas Day slate. Something I always love. The Christmas Day slate is loaded with also the NFL in there as well, which I can also pull up. But looking at what we have here on the Christmas slate, there's only one matchup I don't like. Starting out at noon, we do have Spurs Knicks. Really like that finals rematch. I feel like the Christmas Day should always start in the Garden. Love that start to the day. At 1, then we have Green Bay and the Chicago Bears. Right after that, got some football mixed in. Love that. But I do think the Christmas slate is dominated by the NBA, even though the NFL does have games on there as well. But we have a flawless slate on both sports. So getting into the next NBA game, Heat, Celtics, big-time rivalry still there. I'm interested to see how good these two teams are because it's the world where I think these teams can be really, really good or kind of just figuring themselves out for the first couple months of the season. But should be a really good matchup with Tatum, Giannis, Bam. Really love that matchup as well. Then at 4:30, we have Bills, Broncos, another playoff rematch. Going to be a very good game. At 5, we have Sixers, Lakers, LeBron back to LA. Luka, LeBron on Christmas Day writes itself. Then we get into OKC versus Minnesota, which I think is going to be a really, really good matchup. Two teams that have battled before in the playoffs over the past couple seasons. Two teams that are going to be probably in path of each other going to the finals out west. Getting that matchup here on Christmas Day. Then we have LA versus the Seahawks, who put on classic after classic after classic last season in their 3 matchups that they did have. So that's going to be another classic. And I think they play twice in the last couple of weeks of the season as well. So it's going to be a real big-time game for that NFC playoff picture. And then wrapping it up with the one that I wasn't really the biggest fan of is Denver, Golden State. More so just I'm interested to see on the biggest day if they ever do change it is do we ever get more of a young matchup? Because I feel like we could have been in a situation to where man, we had some intriguing young teams. You could have did it's maybe not those guys aren't ready for, not say they're not ready, but I don't think the NBA would put those younger teams on this big of a spotlight for them, especially on Christmas Day slate. But we could have got maybe a Wizards Jazz, DP versus AJ, number 1 versus number 2. Or even a Wizards versus Dallas with Cooper Flagg, number 1 overall pick versus this year's number 1 overall pick in AJ DePonsa. Maybe they just mix in a youthful younger team in there as well. But they didn't go that route. Denver, Golden State, going to be a fine game. But who knows what Golden State is this season, even though we did just talk about them and I'm a little bit higher on them this year because I kind of see what their plan is and it's making sense. But I just think it's kind of a whatever game to end the day. But NBA is about to be around the corner. NFL is about a month out. We're about to be out at this dead point in just the sports cycle. I feel like August is the longest month. Yes, we get to excite with fantasy football and everything else like that till the season starts. But man, once NFL starts, I feel like the NBA just quickly comes right around the corner, and then we'll be active with both sports. Make sure you guys are tapped into the Barrel Talk podcast for all content on both sports. But that's all I have for this episode of Into the Barrel, Inside the Barrel. Still getting used to that new name. But thank you guys for tuning into this episode of the Barrel Talk podcast. Hope you tune in to future episodes.